Hello, thank you for watching my channel today. My name is Sarah and my channel is called Your True Shelf. Today I'm doing a Friday Reads again. It's been a couple of weeks since I've done one and I've got so many things to talk about. It's almost as many as a wrap-up really. I've managed to finish quite a few books in the last fortnight since I last recorded, and I've hauled some books, but I think the haul is probably going to have to wait until another video because otherwise this video will be too long and I'll try and cram too much into it. I'd just like to also say at the beginning of this that I was lucky enough to be a guest on the Bookcast Club podcast this week, and that is published today as I am filming, which is on Sunday, and I'm going to leave a link to that below. We're talking about our recent 5-star reads and also the impact of social media on reading. So myself and Jenny, who is one of the hosts of the Bookcast Club podcast. So if you'd like to have a listen to that would be lovely, and I will leave a link to that in the description box down below. I have actually recorded a second podcast as well, but that's not coming out until June, so I'll talk about that nearer the time. So let's crack on with the books that I finished since I last checked in with you guys. So the first book that I finished was this one, The Tattooist of Auschwitz by Heather Morris, which was our book club pick for whatever month we've just finished, for April. Which we discussed at the beginning of May. So this is quite timely because I don't think we knew when we pick our book club books, we put them all into a pot, and the pot we just add to the pot over time, and then we just pick one out at random. So it's complete coincidence that this is now coming out as a TV show as well. It's just started, and I found this book to be quite good, but other people in the group were quite critical of the writing. They felt that you didn't know the characters well enough, you didn't feel their emotions well enough. But this is based on the true story of a man called Elie and his time at Auschwitz, where he is the tattooist, which is the tattooist. Yeah, has the job of tattooing numbers on all of the people who are in the prison camp. He has a very sad story, as expected in this horrible situation, and he also meets a woman in there called Gita and falls in love with her, and it's very much the story of Elie and Gita as well as the time in the camp. And at the back of the book there are actually pictures of Elie and Gita, which is really lovely. So I felt like I did feel emotions with this book and care about the characters and things, but other people in the book, because I think it was written initially as a screenplay, I think other people in the book club found that it read more like a screenplay than like a novel. So, but I enjoyed it, if enjoy is the right kind of word for a book about the most horrific experience. The next book that I finished listening to was one that I have mentioned before, and that is River East, River West by Aube Lescure. And I loved this book. I went in thinking I'm not really going to like it because I'd heard other people say they didn't really like it, and I really loved it. So we're looking at the story of Aube, who is a teenage girl growing up in Shanghai. Her mum is white, her dad is Chinese. She's never known her dad, and she's very much trying to find herself. She's made out to be a bit different at school because she's mixed race, because her mum's American. She's got this big dream of going to America and going to college in America and things. And one day her mum just announces that she's getting married to this guy called Lu Fong. He's their landlord, and Alva's really not very happy about this at all. But then the second perspective we get in the book is Lu Fong's perspective, and we go back to when he was a man in his probably 20s, and his story, and how actually he's known Alva's mum for a really long time, but Alva has no idea. She just thinks he's their landlord. And I loved the story because it was about growing up, it was about belonging, finding identity, about displacement, about people's rise to power and how power can be a bad thing, and how people can fall from that power and how that affects them. And so it's about the contrast between growing up in a very small community to moving to a city. It's about so many different things, and I thought that the writing was really well done, and I very much enjoyed reading it. I'm not going to talk about it too much because it's been mentioned a lot of times because it's on the Women's Prize shortlist, but if it did win, then I would be very happy with that because I thought it was great. I gave it 4.75 stars. It wasn't my favourite book of the shortlist. That would still be probably Brotherless Night, but this was very close second for me. The next book that I finished was Daisy Jones and the Six by Taylor Jenkins Reid. This book was on my TBR spin list, and the prompt for this one was read a book that a friend keeps bullying you into reading or something. So none of my friends bully me into reading anything, because most of my friends I don't discuss books with. But on booktube, this book has done the rounds so many times. It's one of those books that I feel like I should have read by now. So that's why I chose this one off my TBR spin stack. And I was a little bit disappointed with this book. I know that a lot of people really love it. It's told in interview style, and it's about Daisy Jones, who is born into a wealthy family. She's neglected as a kid. She kind of goes off and starts doing clubs, alcohol, drugs, all of that kind of stuff when she's in her mid-teens. And then she becomes a singer for this band called The Six, and the band goes to new heights, and it's very much about the dynamics of the band. So the interviews are taking place after the band have split up many years ago, and we're hearing from all their different perspectives what happened, and the relationships within the band and the individual band members' relationships outside of the band. I would say that if you like the film Almost Famous, which is one of my favourite films of all time, this is quite similar, but I love Almost Famous so much it didn't match up to that for me. And I think that because the whole thing is done in interview style, whilst I think that's really cleverly done and it works, I felt that it detracted from how well we got to know the characters because it was just in audio snippets. We never got to know too much more than a few sentences at a time, and I didn't feel that that writing style worked for me, but it was still an enjoyable book. I gave this 3.25 stars. For Ben's read-along, year-long read-along, the prompt for the month of April was to read, I'll get my words right in a minute, to read a book which was a previous Women's Prize winner. I had 3 to choose from, and the one I chose was A Spell of Winter by Helen Dunmore, because I'd had this on my TBR for a really long time and I didn't really like it. It was the first winner of the Women's Prize back in 1995. We follow a brother and a sister who live in a big creepy old house with their grandfather, who is not a big presence in their lives really. Their dad has gone to a sanatorium. The mum has fled abroad and just left the family, and the siblings are there and with their, I guess she's a servant, but she means quite a lot to them because she's sort of raised them. They start off as sort of quite, I don't know, maybe like 10, 12, and then they go through to adulthood where they also have a very wealthy neighbour who plays a part in their lives. There's an interfering spinster who plays a part in their lives. He's a bit obsessed with the sister. And then, so it started off quite well, and then the brother and sister start sleeping with each other. Not quite sure where that came from or why that was necessary in the story, but I was just like, what? Really strange. So yeah, the brother and sister start sleeping together. That goes on for a really long time, and there's consequences to that, and then it just kind of ends, and I'm like, what was that all about? So for me, I didn't, even though it had promising plot points at the beginning and I was enjoying it to start off with, I was really looking forward to it ending, and then when it did end, I was just like, well, that was just a really disappointing ending. So I didn't really like that book, and I gave it 2 stars. So yeah, I was kind of glad that that's gone off my TBR now. And yeah, I actually ended up unhauling. I had quite a few books by Helen Dunmore that I'd never read, and all of them have quite low ratings on Goodreads apart from one. So apart from that one, I've unhauled all the other books, which is quite a good way to unhaul books if you have multiple books by an author and then you decide you don't really particularly like that author. At least you get to get rid of several books at once. So that was the one bonus. The next book, however, was much better. And, well, actually the next 3 books that I read were all much better. So I then read Soldier Sailor by Claire Kilroy for the Women's Prize shortlist, because I was trying to read the whole shortlist, and I've read 5 of the 6 books now. And I absolutely loved this book. I think I've heard universal high praise of Soldier Sailor, but I really, really did think it was fantastic. It's a very short book. It's about the mother who refers to herself as Soldier and her little boy who she refers to as Sailor. And it's an Irish book. The book starts when Sailor is a tiny baby, and it progresses through until he's about 3 years old, I would say, to 2 to 3 years old. And it's about how it feels to have a baby, to become a parent, to be completely overwhelmed by this tiny person who's turned your life upside down, who you love more than anything in the world, but who also causes you to struggle quite a lot. There's a point in the book where she decides she's going to leave the family, and it doesn't last very long. She doesn't leave the family, but I thought that it was really good how she dealt with those feelings of sometimes just wanting to run away and get away from the whole situation because it's so hard. And the other dynamic in the book is the relationship between her and her husband. So her husband is a complete useless person. He doesn't do anything to help her. He says that he can't do anything to help her because every time he tries, she tells him he's not doing it right. And she says, well, you're only not doing it right because you've never tried to do it in the first place. Oh, I've got pins and needles on my leg. I've been sitting on the floor filming videos for a while instead of sitting in my chair because I moved the chair, and I just hate sitting on the floor. It's just not comfortable. And now I've got pins and needles all down one leg, which is really horrible. Yeah, it really changes the relationship between her and her husband. He spends more and more time at work. He blames everything on her if it goes wrong, like, oh, you've forgotten to bring this, and why don't you try doing it this way instead, because it's clearly not working the way you're doing it. And if she has to get up in the night because their son's unwell, he'll be like, can you stop turning lights on and making noise because I'm trying to sleep, I've got work tomorrow. And he's just so unsupportive of everything, and you end up feeling quite resentful towards him, but she also feels resentful to him because he gets to have his old life still. He gets to go out to work, he gets to get dressed up for work, he gets to see friends, all of those kind of things. And I do remember that feeling of when I was very much sort of tied to the sofa and the house and sort of mum groups and all that kind of stuff, that my husband could go and do other things. And I do remember that feeling of resentment. That was definitely something I felt at the time. And I just thought that it captured it all so well as all the good bits and all the funny bits, all the bits where your kid won't do something, but then if they see another kid doing it, they straight away will do it. Or how, I don't know, there's a bit where she's trying to put on his socks, and as soon as she puts one sock on, he'll pull it off, so she'll put the other one on, and while she's putting the first sock on again, he's pulled it off again. And all those kind of things that kids do all the time. You put on one shoe and they kick it off while you're putting on the other shoe. All those kind of things that drive you insane, but they are kind of funny when you're reading about them as well. So yeah, I thought it was really, really well done. I would say that if you are trying to become a parent, or you are not a parent not by choice, it might be a very difficult book to read, and so I probably wouldn't recommend it in those circumstances. But I think if you are child free by choice, or you just haven't wanted to have children yet or whatever, I still think that it would be a good book to read, because I think it would give a level of insight. And I've definitely seen guys on booktube like Ben from Ben Reads Good who love this book, and he doesn't have children. So I think it's not just a book that you should read if you have children. So I've talked quite a lot about that one. And then I listened to on audio a book which was brought back to my attention when I filmed the chess book tag last week. And I noticed that it was about to disappear from the free section of Audible, so I thought, well, actually, I'm going to read this next. And it was Mighty Be Our Powers by Leymah Gbowee. This is a non-fiction book, which was an incredible memoir. Leymah Gbowee is from Liberia, and the book starts when she's just graduating high school. She wants to go off to university to be a doctor, and then literally as they're having a graduation party, the civil war breaks out in Liberia, which was in the early 1990s. And this book is about, there's a preface in the book which says that it's about war from how it affects women and how women can use their power for peace. So you hear about the civil war, which is absolutely devastating, and the huge displacement which happens in Liberia into neighbouring countries like Ghana and Sierra Leone, because it's just so unsafe and there's just no food and no water, and it's terrible. And people lose so much and so many people that they love. And then it develops as Leymah gets older. She starts getting into working with trauma healing and with social work, and she is in an abusive marriage herself. She has 4 small children. She has no money, and she's trying to use over time, she starts using the skills that she has to bring women together from all different faiths and different countries in a movement for peace, to try and use their collective powers to spot the signs when political unrest is coming, to work with people who have been child soldiers, to help women register to vote and remove barriers from them being able to vote to choose new political leaders, and also to help them heal from all of the massive trauma that they've been through during the war. And her role gets bigger and bigger in this process, and she ends up winning the Nobel Peace Prize. And her story is absolutely incredible. Like, it's a story of endurance and a story of hope and faith and the power of collective action. Never violent collective action, just collective action, and how sometimes they get really desperate with what they're doing because it's not making a change, and sometimes they have to up their game and they have so little in the way of resources and things. And I thought that it was an incredible memoir. Liberia is a country I knew absolutely nothing about, and I feel like I've got a glimpse into their history now in the country, and I'm so glad that I've learnt about Leymah's work, because she's an incredible human, and I couldn't recommend this highly enough, really. It's a wonderful memoir. And the final thing that I finished reading was another audio book, which was to be taken from the free section, which I've wanted to read for years, and it's very short, and that is Night by Elie Wiesel, which is a fiction book, but very much auto-fiction, about a character, a young teenage boy who is taken to Auschwitz, and about his time in the camp. And I wanted to partly read this because I just read The Tattooist of Auschwitz, and I wanted to compare the different styles of book. And Night is very much a shorter period of time in more detail, but it was easy to connect with him and his story and the complete desperation of what happens and the horror of what happens. And he again went on to win a Nobel Peace Prize, Elie Wiesel, and I became aware of him because I can remember when he was on Oprah picked this book for her book club, and she met up with him. They went to Auschwitz together, and there was like a whole at least one, if not more than one episode dedicated to this. And so I became aware of it at this time and hearing him talk with her. And it was really interesting to read his story, and also the audio ends with his speech for the Nobel Peace Prize acceptance, and also a new preface that he wrote for the book before he died. So it was a really incredible story of, again, unbelievable resilience in the face of adversity. And yeah, I'm glad that I had the privilege of listening to his story. So that was everything I read. I didn't read all of those books from start to finish in the last fortnight, because that wouldn't be possible. I had lots of them which I was already into and I just finished them, or they were quite short, like Night. So that was everything I read. I'll just give you a quick overview of what I am reading, and then I think we'll call it a day and we'll do a haul another time. So current reads. So I have a buddy read, hence the post-it notes, with my friend Jo of At Night All Blood is Black by David Diop. This is a black soldier's story of World War One. His best friend gets severely injured and is lying next to him saying, please, please put me out of my misery. And he can't do it. He can't kill his friend. And then after his friend dies, it really affects him. There's a clear before and after of how he thinks, feels and behaves due to his friend's death, and thinking, why didn't I kill him? Why couldn't I do it? I should have done it. And I've only read the first section. We've divided this into 5 sections. It's quite a small book. It's only about just over 100 pages. So I'm sure I'll finish it within the next few days, but it's quite intense. And I've read quite a lot of intense books recently, and I feel like for the rest of the month and maybe for next month I need to take a step back a bit on the intensity. So this is one of the things I'm reading now. The second thing I'm reading, which I'm really enjoying so far, is my TBR spin book, and that is The Art of Fielding by Chad Harbach. I've had this on my list for a good, I think about 12 years I've had this on my TBR. It's about baseball, but you don't have to know anything about baseball to read it. So the prompt for this month for TBR Spin was to let AI choose which book of your TBR stack that you will read. And I haven't got ChatGPT or anything like that. I don't really want to sign up for that. So I chose it by asking my friend to pick from my list, and she chose this one. So this is the one I'm reading. And it's basically following 5 characters, 3 of whom are students. One is a professor and one is the professor's daughter, and we're just about to meet the professor's daughter. I'm about 80 pages through this book. It's quite a big book. I think it's about 550 pages, something like that, just 500 pages. And there's a guy who's called Henry who is really talented as I don't even know the names of the players in baseball. Like, he catches the ball. That's what I know. He's really good at catching and throwing the ball. And he is at college, and he has one throw where his finger slips on the ball and it injures somebody else, and it's kind of the consequences that spill out from there. And that's just happened. I didn't read the blurb at all before I went in, so I didn't know that was going to happen. But yeah, I'm really enjoying this so far, and I love a campus novel, and this is a campus novel. And then the final note, the book I'm reading with the kids, which I've taken the dust jacket off, but it's absolutely gorgeous. This is the first in the Nevermoor series. Look at that, isn't it gorgeous? This I have read before. I've read all of the books that are out so far, and I've pre-ordered the 4th book, which keeps getting delayed in its release date. But I'm sure we all know it's about Morrigan Crow, a child who's cursed and is due to die on her 12th birthday. And on the day that she is due to die, a chap called Jupiter North comes along and wants to take her away to a place called Nevermoor, where she has to audition to be in the Wondrous Society. And it's a great series. The kids are loving it, and I'm really enjoying my reread. And then the final thing that I'm reading at the moment is my book club book, which I would never have picked in a million years, and I've got it on audio from Libby, but I'm enjoying it so far. It's called Pieces of Hair by Karin Slaughter. It's a crime thriller book, and so far it's actually really drawing me in. It's about, I didn't read the blurb, so I had absolutely no clue what it was about before I started. There's a daughter who's about 30 who's still living in the room above the garage at her parents' house. Her life's not really going anywhere. She's not very happy, and she goes for breakfast with her mum. She's at this cafe, and while they're in there, Mum's chatting to one of her friends and the friend's daughter, and this gunman comes in and he kills 2 of the people in the cafe, and then the mum steps in, keeps really calm, and manages to stop the situation and kill the gunman. And when the video that somebody's taken is watched back, it would seem that her mum has some training in this, and that she hasn't just done a self-defense act, but she's actually done techniques that would be someone who was trained in what to do in that situation. And as far as the family knows, she's got absolutely no training. And she's telling the daughter, like, I know what you saw, but do not talk to the police until you've spoken to me. That's what's happened so far. And so I am really drawn in, actually. And yeah, so maybe it's nice to be drawn out of your comfort zone with books, isn't it? So that was a really, really long Friday Reads. My apologies that it was such a long video. And I will come back next week, possibly with a shorter Friday Read and a haul of what I've had, what I've got recently. So thank you for watching. I hope that you're having a really great reading week. If you have read any of those books and you'd like to tell me what you thought, then feel free. And if you just want to tell me what you're reading and enjoying at the moment, that would be lovely. And I will speak to you all soon. Bye.